The Knights of the Temple, known to history as the Knights Templar, were introduced into Scotland before 1153 by King David I, who established them at a temple on the Southesk. The general privileges of the order were very extensive. The Templars were freed from all tithes to the church, and their priests were entitled to celebrate Mass and to absolve from sins to the same extent as bishops, a privilege which was strongly objected to by the latter. Their houses possessed the right of sanctuary or asylum for criminals. They could be witnesses in their own cause and were exempted from giving testimony in the cause of others. They were relieved by the papal bulls from all taxes and from subjection and obedience to any secular power. By these great immunities, the order was rendered in a manner independent. However, it would appear, nevertheless, that both the Templars and Hospitallers considered themselves subjects of the countries to which they belonged and took part in the national wars, and another brother, swearing fealty to Edward I in 1296. The author of the Annals of Scotland, taking notice of the Battle of Falkirk, July 1298, informs us that the only person of note who fell was Brian le Jay, Master of the English Templars. Sir Brian was a Knight Templar of high military renown who had shown himself most active against the Scots. Little is known of the farther history of the Knights Templars in Scotland from the time of Alexander II down to the beginning of the 14th century, excepting that their privileges were continued to them by succeeding kings, whose bounty and piety were in those ages continually directed towards the religious orders. By their endowments and the bequests of the nobles, the possessions of the order came to be so extensive that their lands were scattered across the nation. Besides the House of the Temple in Midlothian, there were 11 other temples. The date of the spoliation of the Templars of Scotland corresponds, of course, with that of the persecution of the order in other countries, and it is to the credit of our forefathers that we can obtain no account of any member of the Brotherhood having been subjected to personal torture or suffering amongst them. Their estates, however, appear to have been duly transferred to the possession of their rivals, the Knights Hospitallers, into which order it is not improbable that, like their brethren in England, a number of the Templars entered. In November 1309, the papal legate and William Bishop of St. Andrews held an inquisitorial court at the Abbey of Holyrood to investigate the charges against the Templars, but Grand Preceptor of the Order in North Britain and William de Middleton were the only two knights who appeared before the tribunal, the proceedings of which make no allusion to any punishment being inflicted, so that we may fairly conclude they were soon set at liberty. The preceptor, in his examination, readily confessed that the rest of the brethren had fled and dispersed themselves, and having deserted the temple, they had ranged themselves under the banners of Robert Bruce, by whom they were formed into a new order. But whether the Scottish Templars really joined the victorious standard of Robert Bruce, and with him fought and conquered at Bannockburn, or whether the majority of them transferred themselves, along with the possessions of the order, to the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, certain it is that from the time of the persecution, the order of the Temple, together with all its wealth, became merged in that of the Hospitallers, though certainly not to such a degree as to obliterate all distinct traces of the Red Cross Knights.